those things are optional. I think it'd be very wise to take more time. You're in a place right now where you're looking for a steering committee. Get that public input before you make those decisions, because once those decisions are in there, they're going to be more and more difficult to change, and you'll have more and more developers coming in and trying to use those rules. So I ask you to take that time. One of those items that kind of stuck out to me is delegating authority to administrative staff to make changes and approve adjustments. I don't know what span that takes. There was things in there of letting them approve certain height adjustments under 10%. There was different things. It wasn't clear to me. I'm not an expert on this. I didn't read up on all of it. But you're appointed to recommend things to the commissioners who have been voted in by the town. I know that the administrators and the people who work here have been hired to do that, to work for the town, but I don't know if I would rather have someone who's appointed and elected making those decisions rather than having someone come in and let the administrators do that. I ask that you protect our communities by having or making it required to do traffic studies and environmental studies. In the process of doing that, I've watched videos of runoff and rain, and it seems like there's no consequences. We're about to put in a lot of money into a lot of things along the river to make Woodfin a destination. Putting that money in there and not protecting the river doesn't seem to really make a whole lot of sense to me. Removing those density limits that I talked about, I heard something about Mountain Village becoming a minimum of 8 units per acre, and then all of a sudden it expands to, I've read 17, I've read more. I don't know what's right and what's wrong, but removing any limitation just means it can be as big as the developer wants it to be. I heard somebody on the board at the last meeting say something about not being as concerned about height as they are about how it fits in the neighborhood. Please consider that portion of it. Have it fit in the neighborhood. And I know my time is up, but I got one last thing. The commissioners rely on you. I went to the commissioners meeting right after the last meeting. They deferred back to the board. They wanted more information on what your decisions were as to why certain projects were presented as they were. Take your time, document your decisions and your reasoning, get it before the board so they know what you're thinking and why you recommend what you recommend. Because only in that way, if you communicate clearly, can this board work with the commissioners to benefit the town.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
It's my wife's birthday.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's start again. Rebecca Mason, you're here to speak about something else? Okay, so she goes on the other list? Okay. Oh, you did? Oh, okay, so I can cross you off this one. Okay, how about Michael Bennett? And he signed the other one too? Okay, good. How about Ellen Brown? Okay.
Hello everyone, I'm Ellen Brown. I live at 200 Jonestown Road. I just want to give a round of applause and express my astonishment and admiration for what happened in this last election. Because to get 600 plus people out to vote compared to 150 or 200 is extraordinary. And I think a lot of the credit goes to our friends who are not actually living in Woodfin, but that have worked really hard because of the bluffs and living in Richmond Hill. And I just think that's thrilling. It shows you what we can do. We do have a lot of people, there's at least 25 here tonight, that believe in good government, that believe that our voices should be heard, that believe that we should get information well in advance of any big decisions, all of those things. And we need to get further organized. I think some leaders have taken upon themselves to make sure we all know something's coming up, but we could do better. So I propose to all of you, and on your computers as well, that we try to start something that could be a good government Woodfin project. It could just appeal to everybody. It could be a nonprofit. It could be under the umbrella of Mountain True or something, but I think we should do that. And I want to give you my own little personal story. When I was 37, housewife, little children, frustrated as all get out because I was at a boys' boarding school and they didn't think they needed me to teach. And our church looked for a project that spring, and we listened to a program about a free clinic. This was in Lynchburg, Virginia. We heard about one in Roanoke. 5 months later, we had started the free clinic. We had a church. We had a dentist who'd given us all the equipment. I was offered a chance to be the director, but I just thought it was fun to be the founder. And we had United Way funding. And we had all the dentists and doctors and nurses and you name it excited. And it's 35 years later, thereabouts. Can you imagine how many thousands of people have gotten free health care? And now they've doubled. They have one in Bedford as well. And I go, golly, that was good. Gee, we could do something thrilling like that. We represent not just Woodfin, but this part of North Carolina, this part of Western North Carolina, this part of the French Broad, of nature, of saving something that'll bring the tourists here, for heaven's sakes. We can't kill the messenger. There's a nice expression. I can't think of what it is. But we got to save what is our most important asset. And part of that asset is our communities and our feeling of having some say, some participation, some chance to be a part of what is so wonderful about where we live. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, how about Robert McBee?
Hi again. Good to see you guys. Thanks for serving the town. Robert McGee, 5 Martell, near the river. Also across the river, several acres on the other side of the river at Richmond Hill. I also went to school in Marshall, in the middle of the river, on the island. So you've probably seen that old school. And my father's ashes are in the river. So the two most important things to me are the river and our community. And I believe it was Mr. Grimmett last meeting who said we've got to pass some ordinances to be open for business. I don't think you're ready to be open for business. I think there's still some work to be done. I think Nathan, who spoke a couple of times, a couple of people back, made all the points. And, one is you got to require traffic studies for these large projects. You've got to, all projects over a certain size really need to go through the whole conditional use review. And you've got to require environmental studies for any large projects that are adjoining the French Broad River or that might have runoff into the river or the tributaries, because what's most important is we need to protect the environment, the river, and the community. So to me, the key is the river and controlling the traffic and understanding what's going to happen, how you're going to impact the neighbors. And so thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. How about Tracy de Blasio?
Tracy DeBlasio, Asheville, 30 Robin Lane. I think, the election last week really just said, platform the candidates that were elected by a landslide. They have a mandate to follow their agenda of open government and really find a balance for sustainable growth in the community, for the river, for the trees, for the neighbors and everybody. So I think, this is not a good time to go ahead and do mass changes to the ordinances. There have been so many different versions of those in the last 4 months. The current version that's being discussed tonight has not been posted online in the agenda. So we're not really aware of what may or may not be happening. But we do know that there's probably not a steep slope ordinance in there. There's still loopholes for group developments and other things. So I think it would be easier to swallow for you and to get it right and not continue to regret decisions made if we do it in piecemeal, one topic at a time, so you can really dig into it and not go through 150 pages and expect that you're really going to get it right. So we're asking that you don't pass any amendments today and that you look to adopt your steep slopes, it's almost done, some of your stormwater and anything before you make any big changes. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. How about Ben Saylor?
Ben Saylor, 2 and 4 Union Street. Hello again. And I guess I just wanted to explain a little bit more about my story and who I am in this town. I lived here for 5 years. Recently moved back across town to another home I own over there, and I Airbnb my homes here. That's part of how I make my living in this town. I know there's a lot of, question about Airbnb and the future of that in Woodfin and this town, and that's its own issue. But I am a small-time businessman who makes my living off of people coming and staying in these 2 little old mill houses that were, historical mill houses for the mill on the river there. My homes look directly at the Bluffs property. So you hear me talking about the view sheds and my previous nervous rants. Well, it's super important that anybody on that side of the river has, is not looking at some monstrosity. Unfortunately, I feel like I probably will be with the Bluffs development. So I would echo everyone else's comments with whatever's going on with this massive document that I guess got some workshopping and some review, that we really don't approve anything tonight and really step back, get a steep slope ordinance in there, keep the current height restrictions, please. I don't know about this removing of minimums for density, but that sounds unnecessary. Again, we're trying to protect reckless development and advise our town government on this. You guys are elected to do that. I've been a voice in my community that helped knock on doors and get some of these voters out to make these changes. And I speak on behalf, even though I don't live in Woodfin currently, of all my other lazy Woodfin friends who won't come down here and speak. We all feel this way. We all want scenic view shed on the river. We're adventurers, we're boaters, we are Airbnb hosts, we are hard workers. I have a gutter cleaning business. So, everybody wants Woodfin to be a great place moving forward. You certainly are not going to let that happen by turning it over the keys to the castle to any developer who wants to come in and build something like the Bluffs, which, by the way, hasn't been mentioned before, but the Bluffs was going to be a water park originally. John told me that over the phone, or the developer. That was the initial vision for the Bluffs at Riverbend, was one of the largest water parks in the southeast. So I have a recording of that conversation if that needs verification, but that's the type of thing that could come in, and that people driving from Ohio on I-26 passing through Woodfin would be looking over and seeing next to the French Broad River if we don't have conditional review for projects like these. So I urge you to please take that into consideration and don't pass anything tonight that hasn't been given careful review and doesn't have the proper teeth in it to protect the residents of Woodfin. Thank you.
Okay, those are all the names on the list for the public comment section. Huh? There's one more? Oh, I'm sorry. I checked him off. Eric Edgerton. Sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Edgerton. I live at 7 Fairway Court here in Woodfin. I've come back at Jim's request to clarify some points that I made at a previous meeting about the conditional zoning tool that is in this set of ordinance revisions. So just want to make sure that we're clear on what that tool is and how it goes into effect. Typically, in every jurisdiction that uses this tool, there will be a trigger built into the ordinance that says if you are
in order to receive development approval. That's a much higher level of review, and it results in better outcomes. So to put in the process or the tool of having conditional zoning without actually giving any sort of mechanism to force developers into that process, you're just completely missing the actual purpose of that tool. You're missing any chance of having it be effective. So that's what I'm saying you all are capable of putting into this version right now. It's something that says in any zoning district, if you have 20 or more residential units, you have to be conditionally zoned. Or if it's a commercial project, 50,000 square feet or more, you have to be conditionally zoned. But that's what's missing. Happy to answer any questions you have, but that's what needs to be put in for that tool to be at all effective.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we are finished with the public comment. All right? And we are moving on with E on the agenda, be text amendment. What we're doing is reviewing the text amendments to the zoning and subdivision ordinance for general updates and compliance with North Carolina General Statute 162. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fixed.
The public hearing on this was held at the last meeting, and you received the document then of all the changes. There's no proposed changes to that document, except for, in section 54-120, we added a reference to the website for, the zoning map, reviewed the public inspection. Under the community shopping zone, there was one, place where we missed changing alderman commissioner to alderman to commissioner. And then it was also brought to my attention that the setback definition was relevant to signs, and if you recall, all those definitions were removed, so I took that definition out and added a new definition for setback line, to read, a line delineating the minimum allowable distance between the property line and the building on the right, within which no building or other structure shall be placed, except as otherwise provided. Other than that, it's the exact same document that you saw in October.
Adrian, I was a little confused about height, and the only thing I had in front of me was the slide presentation. Each on that slide number 10 still has that height does fall into what staff could change. Was that a typo? Where would it be in the list of ordinance changes?
It's in, it's section 54-319.
Here we go.
It does just references the administrative minor modifications, and in the version of the ordinance you received, the only three options for that were layout configuration, parking, and setbacks.
Okay, so height's not included.
No.
Okay, thank you. Can we talk about conditional zoning and in reference to what Eric Edgerton talked about? Is there, it's, right now, the way I understand it, it only applies for Mountain Village zoning designation. Is there a
So-
reason that we wouldn't apply it to all zoning designations over a certain density or size or number of units?
My goal with this was to clean up the Mountain Village district and how that is, submitted and approved, because the language right now is not clear, and staff has a hard time kind of directing how that needs to look. So this was our opportunity to introduce conditional zoning to the ordinance, and we focus on Mountain Village because of that. My goal, when I first started this, was to get the 160D changes in there and to make some other amendments that needed to be done, and immediately turn around and start looking at each zoning district and what changes needed to happen there. I haven't been able to get to that yet, but this was the initial, option for cleaning up the ordinance in the Mountain Village district. So that's what it is. Doesn't mean it's gonna stay that way forever, it's just a start.
So will every proposed Mountain Village development trigger conditional use? I mean,
Yes, the way
conditional
it's written
zoning,
now, yes.
regardless of size, it's the thought is that we can apply to other zoning designations as we tackle those.
We can create the triggers that Eric's referring to when we tackle those. We just haven't gotten to that point yet. This was just the introduction of conditional zoning in response to 160D for clarifying how that should look. And it was applied to the Mountain Village district to clean that up, and that was our first step.
But we could, either now or in the future, apply to a multifamily development over X units or a shopping center over Y square feet.
We could, but we haven't taken time to review the options for that. I wanted to throw it in there now. I wanted to take some time with the planning board to work all that out.
for Commissioner Edgerton to talk about that for a second, to comment on what you just said. I'm not trying to be adversarial, but I want to make sure I understand. Eric, is that the strategy that she's proposed?
Madam Chair, I have a concern about Mr. Edgerton offering legal advice to this board when he is not an attorney for representing this board. And if he represents the information as legal advice, I am speaking to the chair, sir, and I would have a real concern about that. And so I make the board aware of that, because, and I make Mr. Edgerton aware of it, not as any way of threat. I'm actually concerned that his statements could be considered legal advice, and he would be considered to be giving legal advice when he is not employed in such manner to do so.
I'll rephrase my question to the chair. Would it be possible for Commissioner Edgerton to comment, not providing any legal advice on what we just talked about?
Sure, and
Conditional zoning.
Mr. Craig's probably correct, I'll give you that disclaimer, I'm not giving you legal advice. So, proceeding forward, the way that I've seen it done in other jurisdictions is exactly as I said before, you need to build an administrative order for it to be effective. So, the reason why I suggest that you can do it now, more appropriately do it now, is because you're creating the tool. You're literally giving the mechanism life in the town of Woodford for the first time ever by creating the conditional zoning overlays. If you don't have a mechanism for forcing developments into those, that just remains a tool without any efficacy or purpose. So, to the extent that we could do it later, that's certainly correct, but you can also do it now, and you've got the mechanism in place to do it now. So if there's any concern, this board knows the town of Woodford, you all have the knowledge within your purview of what you think those standards should be to foresee more close review of certain developments over certain sizes. So to the extent that you all want to do it now, you have the tools in hand, you can do it now. You can also wait, but you can do it now, so this is when you're going to be creating the tool.
I don't want it to appear that I'm overly focused on conditional zoning. Does anybody else share the concern? Is everybody comfortable with just doing Mountain Village for now and waiting on this?
Madam Chair, may I actually give some legal advice as a retained attorney by this board in this town regarding this? And, Mr. Edgerton is right in many ways when he used the word typically and the way you most often see it. And he is correct. The way that it is done in this ordinance is not typical. But I believe it also is workable in its current form. One thing I heard someone say, and I'm really not sure who it was, that conditional zoning only applies to Mountain Village. And I actually have to respectfully disagree with Ms. Eisenhower, who seemed to agree with that. The way the proposed ordinance is written, there will be conditional zoning parallel almost to any of the current base forms. So like R7, there would be a R7CZ. So that's the way it's written as I read it in the conditional requirements. And so it does apply to all districts, right? It would apply. As written, it would create a CZ district for each base except Mountain Village. And this is odd, and I acknowledge it. And I didn't write this, so although as I understand it's been vetted by the Institute of Government, all that, but they're not here, I am. It's unusual. In that, the way this proposed ordinance is written, essentially there is no base Mountain Village there's only a CZ district. And so, and it states in here that, that the Mountain Village can only be created as a CZ, and the, whatever section is 5450 is listed as Mountain Village CZ. So, unusually, there is no base Mountain Village. So, if someone wants to get a Mountain Village conditional use, they're going to have to do conditional use. And what kicks them into that, as it is currently written, with a minimum of 8, that is, strangely, a trigger. That triggers CZ. They're wanting to do Mountain Village anything over density of 8, which is what the requirement is to be CZ, would require conditional zoning. Look, this is some, I think Mr. Edgerton may appreciate what I'm trying to do here, but it's some really technical legal language that I'm trying to convey across to you. But right now, and I did look at the statute 160B, and it has, your base district, what I call base district, then it has conditional districts. It is typical for those to be associated. But in my reading of the 160B statute, it does not require a base. I thought it did, quite honestly, until I looked at it. It doesn't require it. It doesn't say that it has to relate to it. This ordinance says that it relates to a base, like a R7 or something, but it specifically excludes, as written, specifically excludes Mountain Village from having to have a base. It just creates a conditional zone. As a consequence, now, look, I agree with what Ms. Eisenhower said, and really what Mr. Edgerton said in some aspects, that it would be better if you had a list, and that's how he's familiar with City of Asheville. I'm familiar with City of Asheville's conditional zoning, whatever it is, their rule, whatever, I've forgotten the thing, but they have little specific things that are the triggers. But those, right now, the trigger, as is currently written, until it can be specified more distinctly later, the trigger is, as written, that the application, basically they have to come in and say, we're R7, but we want these changes to R7, and so they have to propose a modified R7. And those modifications that the person proposes kicks them into a CZ zoning. If they just came in and said, hey, we meet all the requirements of R7, you go through as R7 approval. But if they want something outside of R7 that does not meet R7, that kicks them into the conditional zoning approval process. So yes, this is unusual. Yes, it's not perfectly clean, but it works as I read it. And so you can always come back and add some more definitive things later about, okay, if you want to have a modified, if you want to have a CZ, R7 CZ, these are the things that will trigger that. You can certainly do that. Right now, the way it's written, I contend that there is a trigger. It's unusual. It's not clear. It just allows someone to come and say, we want to make these changes. And there's not a defined list that kicks it into CZ. It's just something different than the standard base, for example, R7 trigger thing. So that's the trigger. I just wanted you to be aware of it. It would be better long-term, but as Ms. Eisenhower has indicated, that's the plan. One of the concerns, as I understand it from staff, is that basically Mountain Village is whatever you want. And, so this, as I understand it, staff's reasoning for putting it in this way and to specifying Mountain Village is to try to gain some control over that by putting a number that kicks it into conditional zoning. Strangely, that means if someone comes in with an application for something along the lines of a base Mountain Village, there really wouldn't be, if they had everything else where they said the density was 6 instead of, if it says a minimum of 8, they came in with 6, they wouldn't kick into conditional zoning, but they also wouldn't have anything that they could apply for. Question? So, let me, because I really taking it, and I'm glad to answer it, I'm just gonna make sure I say it as best I can. So they couldn't actually apply for Mountain Village base because there's not one currently. Now, that doesn't mean there shouldn't be one in the future, but they couldn't come in and say, we want a Mountain Village with, for example, 6 units, because that would not meet the 8 minimum and would not take them into the conditional zone. That's strange. I mean, it's reverse. It's illogical in some ways, but that is well, the best I can determine how this is written and works. It does work. It does work. It works strangely. And I'm sorry, Mr. Costa, I just wanted to finish my thought.
So are we not changing the minimum, we're changing, we're amended density requirements to a minimum of 8 units for Mountain Village. So if it's not 8, it's not gonna be Mountain Village.
Well, if it's not 8, it won't be Mountain Village CZ.
I thought we were changing it to be Mountain Village at all, Adrian, that it had to be a minimum of 8.
Well, no, that's correct, but again, the way it's written, there is no Mountain Village. There's only Mountain Village CZ. Mountain Village CZ is triggered by density of 8 or greater. If you came in here with 8 or greater, or I think it's 8 or minimum, yeah, I think it's 8 minimum. If you came in here with an application for a density of 8 for Mountain Village, that would trigger the conditional zone review. I know it sounds strange. People are saying, well, wait a minute, we want to map it. But that's the trigger. It's kind of a reverse trigger, but it's odd.
I'm a country kid. Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're not saying that there is no such zoning designation as Mountain Village.
As written, I am saying that, as written, the proposed ordinance has Mountain Village CZ only. It has, for example, R7, and it allows for R7 CZ, so that there's both a base and a CZ. But as written, in Mountain Village, there is no, what I call base Mountain Village, there's only a conditional zoning Mountain Village. And I'll tell you that I have not reviewed this ordinance until recently, and so it is a mental gymnastics to some extent, I acknowledge. But it also, I think, strangely meets what Mr. Edgerton is kind of wanting to do, which is require conditional zoning with a trigger. Well, Mountain Village actually has a trigger. So. Any other questions? Yeah.
Has everybody else on the board had time to sufficient time to go and prepare this for the source document? If I'm the only one that hasn't had time, then I'll be quiet. Seeing these in the list today, Adrian, was fantastic. It helped take the mud off my glasses. I was really struggling. As you know, I do.
Everything off of there. Not just.
All right, so. Where we at? All right, we're in old business item number 1.
If we need to call it a vote, recommendation of the
Right.
text amendment to what commission.
Right. Okay, so we'll do that. But what I'm gonna ask you is, doesn't the board, the board of commissioners, don't they want us here to explain why we have voted the meeting, or just something completely different?
Right now, we're still number 1.
Right.
One through the text amendment. That's completely, the next item is what they want clarification on.
Oh, that's right, yes. So, y'all got to. Okay, so, are we all ready to vote then? Yes? Okay, so,
Madam Chair,
yes.
you need something to vote on. There needs to be a motion of some nature and a second in order to have a vote.
You have, the statement from the president last time with the first motion. Right here.
And those are based on that, just to try to, if you're wanting to make specific or general or various types of motions relating to these ordinances, I tried to put some generic things that you could use to format your motion so that it would accomplish what you want.
Okay, I'm gonna see, okay,
No, you make, this is the motion that we made. So you need to.
someone needs to make this motion.
Whatever motion you want to make, but that's the
Okay.
motion.
Okay, this is an optional motion. Someone needs to make a motion for us to approve this. I don't know, on the agenda. Anyone wanna do that?
I would like to just say that based on some conversations, and I think we all had the meetings with Adrian and Eric over the last month where we kind of talked about what was happening with this plan. I know all of us are in the same, or at least I feel like all of us are in the same boat where we don't want to go too fast. And thanks for bringing up my point back there about trying to get business done, to get business done. I think I maybe misunderstood, and there's sometimes words, if they don't come out right, that's exactly what it is, you're misunderstood. I just feel like we can't keep sitting here, because the longer we sit here, the longer this pushes off, and we're gonna miss that 2022 deadline. I appreciate all the comments and concerns. The thing that I don't understand, or I don't know of, if it's been, portrayed like you and Eric do to us during our solar meetings, is this is not the whole plan. This is chapter 1 of the 22 chapter process. It is not going to be done overnight, no matter how hard we want to try. We will get to steep slopes at some point. Hopefully, it's the next stuff we start to touch, but right now, we've got to start somewhere. We don't have the steep slope stuff in front of us to vote on tonight. We have had this stuff, and based on Eric and Adrian's comments, which at this point, I don't have any reason to not believe, those items will be coming very soon. So based on that fact, I would like to make a motion that we do move forward and we do approve this section.
Anyone wanna say it?
We're actually recommending to the Board of Commissioners that they approve these. Is that actually what we're doing?
That's what I just made from this.
Okay.
Okay, and we have to, all right. Everyone want to vote on it? Okay. How many people are in favor? Okay, everyone, now let's vote.
Thanks for taking the time to think the question. I appreciate it.
Okay, so 1, 3, and 1. Okay, new business is the discussion of rezoning the property located at, Blueberry Hill Road. He further identified to the Buncombe, further identified by Buncombe County parcel number, from community shopping to Lively Rockville. Okay, where we're at here is, you gonna explain it?
Yeah, so we had a public hearing on it at the last meeting, and, this board voted to deny the request. That was sent to the board of commissioners. There was a written statement provided that it was not consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that was reviewed through the Northern Due Together, so they take it back to you to, revisit that discussion and clarify the decision, based on the comprehensive plan. I provided a written document that was approved last time that listed some items that could be, that was consistent with the comprehensive plan. You didn't agree with that, so I provided that, and then I provided a sheet for you to add your thoughts to. And I think you all received a document from Member McAllister with some potential reasons for denial.
I watched the commission meeting where they sent this back to us and was a little frustrated because we have verbatim notes from our meeting, but, so I tried to summarize, I went back, had the comprehensive plan out, my notes from our last meeting, and, they don't make zoning changes strictly based on the comprehensive plan. There are other factors that come in, and I tried to point some of those out today, but I think that our decision to reject that zoning plan was very consistent with the comprehensive plan. And I pointed out two of those very specifically. I could have pointed out other ones, but my opinion hasn't changed. And the one thing I think we might need to do in the comprehensive plan is clarify that in rezoning situations, we might want to specify that a goal is to bring jobs and higher tax revenue. And it doesn't specify that right now, but notwithstanding that, I think that our decision last time is compatible with the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree 100%. I think, the jobs and, promoting new businesses, it doesn't align one-to-one because, well, those items aren't defined very well.
Okay, so,
Just my thought real quick.
go ahead.
Jim, thanks for sending this out. I definitely agree with a lot of it. I'm kind of just a little bit not flipped in my stance on what I want to do, but this is bringing in a new business. It is bringing in a new tax-based revenue for the town of Woodland. What it's not doing, if we change it or if we don't change it, is that it's also at the same time, and this is just in my eyes, please correct me, potentially opening up a door for a bigger issue with some sort of commercial business being there for the neighborhood that's behind it. Yeah. If you leave it as it is commercial zoning right now, you could have, and pardon me if you love them, God, they serve fast food, but you put Chick-fil-A right there and have 200 cars an hour rolling through traffic. Currently. That's where I'm torn. I also don't want the big industrial warehouses. I also don't want auto mechanic shops and things like that in that spot. I would Portland should be one day, or that one. But I wasn't on the board then, so I didn't know about it. I just kind of am concerned, like I do know that part of our job is to also care for the community and the town, the constituents. If we don't move it to this light industrial, the option for the owner of that current property to go out and find an investor that would put some sort of value. Because let's all face it, people buy property to make money on it. As a homeowner, all of us feel that way. We buy property not to lose money, but to gain investment. In our sense, we need to protect the town in this sense, and what could be the best investment that could go there for the property owner? I think they could make a load more money if they put a Chick-fil-A there because of the amount of money that they could charge based off of triple net kind of deals. But, at the same time, I didn't feel that the folks that presented this plan presented it in the same manner that they did at the commissioner meeting. I sat in the back and listened to them the whole time. So I'm willing to kind of explore it a little bit. I am fearful of the ability to not, it just not being a storage unit. That's my fear.
In other words, what we're saying is if we change the zoning, we're not guaranteed that anything's going to go there. But it will be a property that has been rezoned.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been burnt on this before, right? The developer saying we're gonna build something and then all of a sudden it's something else.
Exactly.
So I don't wanna just jump down the road and say, let's do it, because I think a storage building's better than Chick-fil-A. But I also know where you're coming from, Jim, like, we wanna create jobs for the town.
Yeah.
We wanna create businesses and things like this too, but we also wanna protect our community, and I just think that little particular corner of land doesn't bode well for like, a fast food restaurant.
Could it also be a shopping center or something?
Absolutely
Small
could.
shopping center with the
Yeah.
zone for currently. You know, I just, as far as doing good economically for Woodman, I just see it as a little bit more in taxes. There's no job. That money's not sticking in the town of Woodman, like it's on South Carolina, as far as I understand. So, I mean, I have a hard time revisiting that based on what we said last time.
Madam Chair? I'm sorry. I believe you're not revisiting it. You have to be careful about that. You're just explaining what you did before. And so it's not a change in vote or anything like that, or reconsideration. It's just an explanation to them.
An explanation that the board of commissioners is asking for. Yeah.
And how do we summarize that for the commission?
Yeah. Do we write something up?
I have this draft document was in your agenda packet, and what you have provided, for why it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan. I can add that to this document.
Oh, never mind.
Exactly. This is something that.
Okay, so we need to specify what the cause is.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say one of the causes is there's no guarantee that the proposed business going in there would be the business that goes in there?
It has to be relevant to the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, the comprehensive plan.
Jim, I think what you got up here in that first highlighted section
Bringing new jobs.
is probably the point that you want right in there.
So because it's not bringing a business that promotes our goal of bringing new jobs, revenue, and tax revenue, which the comprehensive plan appears to encourage. Probably not the right way to say it.
But you're right. That means you're right, promote.
Could we also say as another one though that, the comprehensive plan instructs us to make sure that the use is appropriate and that there's no guarantee that the industrial use will be appropriate?
I mean, we could, at some point, yeah, we were gonna stretch any time right back, because any zoning, at some point, there's something gonna be allowed. You got 75 different things that are allowed, 75 different things that are conditionally allowed.
What are you hearing?
I mean, I think that's the goal of the comprehensive plan, that would be referenced if you feel like that's a reason for the denial of the request. Relative to the comprehensive plan, is that
Yeah, I
we
think
don't
it's
feel
just that middle
industrial
section.
uses are
Okay.
appropriate for that.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, this stuff down here, to me, that's just kind of fluff, right? This-
Okay, all right. I'm good with that.
That's enough, yeah.
Because it really was our opinion last meeting that it's not doing what a comprehensive plan intends to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right, that's how we're all moving on.
I'm good with that. Thank you very much.
Okay? All right, got that, Brian? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah? Want to say something else?
Is it,
Yeah.
oh, Mr. Overly technical, but that's what I'm trying to do. If someone were to make a motion, and I don't have that document you're looking at, so I don't, but if, when you say the middle section, if someone make a motion that translate to the commissioners, the section, and that begins with such and such words and ends with such and such words, just something that she could put in a document that would be something passed by this board to transfer.
Let's try this one. I move that we respond to the commission that the reason we denied the zoning change was that the comprehensive plan calls for attracting new businesses, which translates into new jobs, new residents, and new tax revenue, and that the proposed change does not accomplish that.
And that the property is not appropriate or located for industrial development. That's what we think. The second bullet point.
I would agree with that, but I'm not sure everybody else would. Jay? I would agree with that too.
You think it's not appropriate? So we're gonna add that.
So is that motion clear, Ron? Do you understand?
I mean, I'll probably use your email to write it because that'll be easier for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You should be okay.
Okay, so I need to clarify the motion.
Why not? Let's
I move that this board
leave it somewhere.
respond to the commission that the reason we denied the zoning change is that the comprehensive plan means that businesses will promote our larger goals of bringing new jobs, new residents, and new tax revenue. While this mini storage does bring a new business to the town, it brings a business with low tax producing potential and low job producing business, period.
Okay, so you made a motion, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to second that motion? Okay. Let's vote on it. All right, everybody, we're voting on the motion, we're voting on it, yeah. Okay, everyone agree? I didn't vote originally, I don't know if I should vote on it.
You're good.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Suzanne, are you agreeing with what they all agreed to? Okay.
All right, now we're on to new business. Okay? Item number 1 is a public hearing for rezoning of a property located on Walnut Springs Drive called The Spring. Do I need to read this one? Or do we need to open the public hearing? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm sorry. I'm gonna absolutely quiet today. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna open the public hearing at 7:30. And the rules are the same. People speak for 3 minutes only. And we'll talk for how many people are on this list. What's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 people on the list. So, we'll speak for 20 minutes. Okay. Before that. Okay, so this is a rezoning for, property located on, Walnut Springs Drive. We met with each of you to let you know about the backstory of this, but I'll go over it again. So in 2007, phase 1 of the phase development plan was approved for what was referred to as Waterstone Place to include 25 townhomes located on approximately 30-acre parcel. 19 of the 25 units were constructed, and then 2008 hit, and that development was stopped. Property was, well, 2019, Stars and Strikes, LLC petitioned to rezone approximately 29 acres of the property. It was R7 at the time. They petitioned for it to be rezoned to Mountain Village. But the zoning plan submitted for that proposal did not include the 6 lots of the first phase 1 development. But the Mountain Village rezoning was approved, and then in 2020, Stars and Strikes submitted phase 2 of the development plan for 198 townhome units and received approval for that. The property was then sold to NSR Whitman LLC, and they submitted a plat to staff and had amended the 6-lot area into 12 lots. And the plat listed that those lots as being zoned Mountain Village. And it was a deviation from the original master plan. So that plat was incorrect and has been rescinded, and so the developer is here to request those 6 lots be rezoned properly to Mountain Village. That's what this public hearing is for. The next item on the agenda will be for the master plan approval.
Okay, so now I'll open the public hearing at 7:33. People will speak, and speak ones right out here, 3 minutes. Okay? Rebecca Mason? I got some report, she's going first. Oh, I'm sorry. Who's this? Louise Ordman? Louise Ordman, got it.
I'm here to speak on the rezoning of the 6 homes that are listed on the plat for what's being referred to as Springs. Just a little history. In 2007, the plat was done. It indicated homes belonging to the inner approach. It's phase 1 of what was then known as Springs of Nashville. Subsequently, that name was changed to Waterstone Place. This is the initial these were completed in part and then subsequently finished. We moved in 6 in one part. When the Mountain View was asked for rezoning, with that lot, that parcel was a separate parcel. It wasn't included with the 31 acres. At that time, we were told that the maintenance of the houses would be in sync with the rest of the homes in what is called for some reason. At that time, this request has changed that, which we see as one parcel. That was a separate parcel, not consolidated with the rest of the acreage. Our contention is, based upon the fact it's a separate parcel, not consolidated, in reality, it's probably because there were a parcel across the street from Old Marshall Highway. It's not consolidated. Yeah, got it.
Oh, okay. Your time is up. For the 3 minutes that everyone was supposed to speak, you're done. What more would you like to say? I mean,
Okay.
to go over the whole thing.
All along, we've been told that would remain on 7 over the 6 times.
Okay,
With that.
and so you don't want it rezoned to town road? Gotcha. Okay, what's the step? Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay. What name do you want to go next? Laura? You're gonna go next, Rebecca? Okay.
My name is Rebecca Mason, and I am our someplace HOA president. However, I am speaking as an individual and not for the HOA. Every single document, master plan, map, visual aids, has said our set. In fact, in the first zoning meeting regarding this, and then the commissioners meeting, they had the maps up here, and I walked up to these 6 parcels, and I said, this is going to stay our set. And they said yes, the mayor said yes. We have, emails that say that it's R7 and it's gonna stay R7. Shortly after change, we had an architect that came to Waterville Place to take pictures, to make sure that the 6 parcels would match the existing homes. All of the duplex, NSR, and St. Boris lists the acreage and 6 parcels. They all say and 6 parcels. So it's always been 6 parcels. Last week, David Creed told me that they were always planning on 10 units in that area, which I find interesting. What are we supposed to believe? We are residents of Woodton. Our interests should come first. How many more changes are gonna come based on a developer's wants and wishes? They're changing this from a natural square, which would have been Waterstone Place and then the 6 parcels. Originally, when they started building, they haven't built yet. It was laid out as 6 parcels. The surveyors came out, and then late August, all of a sudden, the trucks arrived and it became 10 parcels, of which we didn't know anything about. The area that those parcels are in is less than 5 acres, so it doesn't even meet the minimum land requirements to get mountain village zone. Leaving it, because I read that what they put in, leaving it as R7 meets land use objective 1. Leaving it R7 meets land objective, meets the land objective. Leaving it R7 meets goal 2 in the range of housing. Leaving it R7 meets the objective of creating a community. In fact, changing it is going to disrupt the existing community. One of the arguments they're making is that it needs to be MV because they got all this changed to MV. We're saying it needs to be R7 because that is a concise unit of area. So they split the master plan with R7. Somewhere along the lines, they decided they didn't like it. So they created NSR as a separate company. That separate company came back and said, oh, we really don't like it. We want to change it. So what's to stop another company from coming in and deciding, oh, we don't like this one?
Your time is up.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, that did it, thank you. Okay, Michael Bennett.
Pass this one.
Yes, okay. Jan Jeffries.
Thank you.
My name is Jan Jeffrey. I'm a homeowner
Springs Drive, directly across the street from the subject of the rezoning. And you can see in picture number 1, the area not developed. When I was looking for a home, I looked all over Buncombe County, from Fletcher to Black Mountain to Woodland. And I chose to buy a home in the Walnut Springs neighborhood. One of the reasons I chose this home was the cottage exterior design of each section of homes that was consistent and blended well together. It was inviting and pleasing to the eye, and it has proven to be a wonderful neighborhood. And you can see the aerial shot in picture number 2. Walnut Springs Drive is a welcoming entry to the neighborhood. As a homeowner, taxpayer, and voter in Woodland, North Carolina, someone who cares about the long-term impact of your recommendation to the Board of Commissioners on the zoning of this small but significant separate parcel of land, I'm asking you to maintain this as an R7 zone. This is step 1 in hopefully to ensure that Walnut Springs Drive continues to be a jewel of Woodland. As step 2, I'm asking NSR, the current developers, that when the Board of Commissioners approves the R7 zone, that the homes on this small, but again, significant parcel be consistent in number, specifically 2 sections of 3 townhomes and consistent in design with the existing homes. And you can see in picture number 3, the 3 homes that are already built in the neighborhood. By doing this, you ensure that this section of the neighborhood remains consistent and welcoming to those who want to be part of this wonderful neighborhood. In my opinion, by doing this, you leave a legacy that you, the town of Woodland, and the homeowners can be proud of. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, that was Dan Jeffrey, Richard Henning.
I'm Richard Henning. I live on Walnut Springs Drive, next to Jan and Rebecca and... Anyway, I'm one of the residents there. Our appearance at this meeting a year ago, a real estate development firm joined our organization as another owner. They've cleared the land. They have done no construction yet, but they're anticipating 189 to 198 new homes on that property. We don't know when it's going to begin. As I said, we cleared the land, everything is ready, but construction is on hold. When they joined us, they became part of Walnut Springs Drive and enter Walnut Springs Drive the same way we do. And we come in on a curve that when you leave Walnut Springs Drive, the curve is such that you can't see traffic coming toward Walnut Springs at all. It gets just about to the entrance and you see semi-trucks and cars coming along. It makes it very difficult to leave Walnut Springs Drive. So I wanted to let you all know that it's a difficult situation with that traffic pattern around Walnut Springs Drive. And from a resident's perspective, it's very difficult. And if you look at the additional homes of 189 to 198, those people will be leaving in the morning. They're not a small group like we are, where some people are retiring. It's going to be a vibrant community, and it's going to be very difficult for them to get out. And it is a concern for us. I don't know that there's anything we can do about it, but they'll be leaving in the morning and coming back in the afternoon. So there'll be heavy traffic there, and I thought you all should know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One more, Lawrence Ordway. Lorian, but you can call me Lorian.
Oh, okay, all right.
Call me whichever.
No, no, no.
I also live in the neighborhood. I'm actually kind of finishing what my mom started. So excuse me if I don't really make full sense, but I think you guys probably know what she means. Or what we all mean, really. So basically, there's a parcel of 6 lots, each of 0.05 acres, each with individual Walnut Springs addresses and tax assessments. The plat is designated as this parcel was not consolidated with the 31-ish acreage that received NV zoning, final subdivision plat drawn by Brooks Engineering. So rendering does not show entire plat and impact of change on current development plan. We were assured that this parcel would remain R7 during initial zoning meeting and commissioner meetings for developer request of zone change to NV in public meeting and via subsequent emails. The NV zoning requires 5-acre minimum. The parcel does not meet this minimum size. NV zoning allows developer to propose changes to lots, roads, alleys by presenting only a portion of the larger overall plat and does not show impact on total plan, thus opening the door for an increased number of structures. So where is process of checks and balances assuring integrity to original plan, or for that matter, to any future plan? That's all I have to say, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that's everyone on the list here. So we'll close the public hearing at 7:48. Oh, I thought, the developer.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I forgot about you.
Good.
Come on,
Oh, good.
come on now.
Well, Matt, maybe not a good thing to do at all. First off, thank you. I think the number one thing I like to do is clear up some confusion. And I think that's really what we got. And I think what you're doing with your new ordinances are probably gonna save us all a lot of time and energy. So, roughly a year ago or so, this property was rezoned by a company called Drapac, Stars and Stripes. That's not us. We are a small firm out of the Charlotte region. Our company is called NSR Woodfin. It is the development arm of our company. We sort of have the luxury of being a developer who comes in and does roads and waters and sewers, and also we have a home building business. With me tonight, James Jones is our head engineer, and he heads up all the development on this project. And I have Sonny Prater with me, who heads up all of our home building processes. So, actually, probably being your neighbor, you're probably one day gonna look back and be a little bit thankful, because we can't have a he said, she said, because we are he and she. But what I want to do is kind of take the board back from what we understood happened here and walk through where we want to go. I don't want to belabor the past. I really want to tell you how excited I am about the future. So if you look at this package, and we'll just take them one at a time, I won't bore you with them. I think I got enough here for we were not interested in buying this property and rezoning it. We were interested in buying this property with it rezoned. So if you look at this meeting on May 19th, 2020 on the backside, you'll see where this property was rezoned. I have a little highlighter there for you. It's nothing major. I think one of the things that we've talked about so many times is that there weren't a lot of really good notes taken about what was rezoned and what wasn't rezoned. So if you look at the second page of this, whenever I asked Michael Saunders to send me what exactly I was buying and rezoning, this is the master plan that he sent me. And on the second page of that, on this page, it says all of this was rezoned Mountain Village. No confusion on my standpoint. It was Mountain Village. So we moved along purchasing the property, spending an exorbitant amount of money to come in and want to be a part of Woodfin. We like it here. We're excited. We built townhomes. We want to be part of the neighborhood. We had a couple meetings, but once again, I think there's been a lot of confusion about who Drapac is, who Stars and Stripes is, and who we are today. We are the property owners. We bought it. We own it. We went through full plan development, which I think has been shared with the staff here as well as Axel. We have water, sewer. We have full development plans in place, and that's why we're moving dirt and trying to create a neighborhood to finish it off. Some of the things these folks have mentioned today, they're gonna be excited that we're here because we are going to clear out some of that left-hand turn so you can see farther. We've already got plans to do that. We wanna redo some of the entrance monuments. We will be responsible for any of the roads we tear up in there. That's all public records, what we do it all the time. We wanna leave the neighborhood, and we're only building 120 townhomes. I don't know about 198, I don't know about where it may go from here. I'm approved for 120 townhomes. I actually had an email with Michael, and I said, hey, Michael, we have a new product. I mean, obviously what was built there is wonderful. It's 15 years old. There's been a lot of things that have emerged in the marketplace. We want to do some exciting new stuff. We like to have masters down. It gives us an opportunity to meet the market where it is. It could be a single mom. It could be an older couple. It could be a couple with no kids. But masters down are something we really look forward to putting in. And one of the products that we've been so successful with meets the actual footprint of what we went and got recorded. So the third page you have here is me taking the process of recording a plat. And this is the 10-lot plat that we recorded. Michael signed it, I highlighted his name at the bottom, and half the town looked at it. So I didn't just arbitrarily go out and say, you know what, I'm gonna mess with these neighbors across the street, I'm gonna go clear these lots and put 10 there. We went through every process we were supposed to with the town and all the ordinances. And what we wanted to do was come back with our new master plan, which we'll talk about after this. But if you can see, the product we're gonna put on the ground today is gonna be a little bit more of this style. It certainly will continue to blend, it'll continue on with what we're putting down the street. It will be kind of the model of what's happening and creating. We want to create value in the neighborhood. We believe, and I believe Mason and I had a conversation the other day, once we take out the what ifs, what is going to happen to the rest of that neighborhood? What if we put new product up there and we start selling it? I think their home values will appreciate. I think we can amortize a lot of nice things in the neighborhood over 120 versus over 19 townhomes. And so I didn't want you to think today that we were coming in here, the developer trying to pull off something on you. We went through all the processes to have 10 lots put with the 6R. We were under the impression it was Mountain Village. Now, we've had some other conversations. We understand that it was done potentially incorrectly. We want to work with it. I want to be the good guy. I want to set the new precedent. Let's get it right. Let's move forward. Let's make everybody happy in the neighborhood. So we're here, we even talked about with Rebecca, maybe we would set up a time when these guys are up every week or every 2 weeks where they can meet at the flagpole, as I call it. Let's meet for a minute. We'll tell you kind of what's going on. You're not blindsided of anything. Maybe we haven't done a very good job of that. Shame on us. But we can be better at that. So I just want you to know kind of where we are while we're asking for this rezoning. It meets the product type we're putting in. It's a little deeper. We actually, from a meeting we had a few months ago, we actually are changing a little bit of the networking of the roads because we realized that a little bit of the road network might put somebody's two alleys converting into somebody's, having car lights in their back door. And so we moved that around a little bit to try to accommodate that as well for one of the neighbors here. So I'm glad to answer any questions. My guys are here. We're excited. We'd love to see this be rezoned in Mountain Village so we can put these 10 units. They're not any more space width-wise. The 3 units that they're talking about, 6, they're each 100 feet wide. Ours are, so they would be 33 and 30 feet wide each, if you will, for 3 of them. Ours are 100 feet wide. They're just 20 feet wide. And to top it all off, probably the most ironic thing in this whole deal is that if we built their units, we couldn't do it in R7 zone. It doesn't allow it. It isn't set back. So even if we were allowed to go back and do exactly what they have there today on those pads, your zoning ordinance wouldn't allow it. So we'd have to rezone it one way or the other.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Well, there's certain setbacks and requirements for the size of lots in that zoning requirement, and you can't do it under the zoning requirements.
He's correct. Would you clarify the fact that what you were said by the town that does name the zoning district, not the village, that the 190 something units, that happens to be what the company that you bought it from had the intention to do it in the village? How many units?
Yeah, their intentions, see there's, so that you can see the parcel a little bit better. They own the rest of this land.
Do they still own it?
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah, we only own kind of what you see here.
So our intentions in this area were 120 units. Now, they may have the ability down the road to add some units to the, what we'll call the third phase, if you will. We call theirs the first phase, ours the second phase, the third phase. But our intention is only about 120 units, that's all we've ever intended.
Is that including the 6 units?
The 10? Yes, it had to sound 120 wherever you put it. So because we had 6 there, we were gonna build 114. That's right. Total units, 100. Yes, ma'am.
What's the, you took some, this might not be the best time to ask this question, it might be for the next.
The next one we'll do it.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry.
Green space, on.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was about to bring up.
We actually have more than we had to begin with. So I'm excited to share it with you. Approved?
Okay, all right, so we'll close the public hearing at 7:57. Oh,
I'd be happy to read that motion. I make the motion to adopt the resolution resolved that the town of Woodford Planning Board hereby advises the comments to the town of Woodford Board of Commissioners that the proposed map amendment is consistent with the town of Woodford comprehensive plan. The proposed zoning map amendment can be considered consistent with our comprehensive plan and the town of Woodford zoning ordinance and is reasonable in the public interest of all. It meets the comprehensive plan, land use goal 1, objective number 1, to pursue compatible infill development in order to actively promote appropriate development and redevelopment of vacant and undeveloped properties within the town, as well as the third goal in that same section to increase the density around transportation corridors in accordance with pedestrian and transit-oriented development standards.
I'll second that.
okay. You want a second? Gonna vote on? Okay, so all in favor of the motion that is read,
To recommend to the
to recommend
commissioners that to be done.
to rezone, right, all in favor of that? Okay. No, opposed, passes.
Just, it was a count.
Okay. So, where's my? All right. So, item 2 on the agenda, item 2 under the business is, the master plan review. And Adrian, you told me that if this gets approved, what did you say? So this wasn't recommended for approval, then right, but since it is, this is, so the master plan was approved in 2020, right, previous development group. This is a amendment to that master plan, deviation to that master plan. We need to review it and make a recommendation to the commissioners to reapprove the master plan. So,
With the change that we made today, that we voted on.
right, but he's gonna explain to you what the benefit is.
Good.
Okay.
So once again, part of our understanding was that the Mountain Village would allow for some changes to the plan within reason. Once again, staff allowed, I think that's some of the stuff you're trying to get away from now. And we get it, once again, we want to work with you and thank you for that. But we made some minimal changes to what you saw was the master plan, which was the plan I gave you in black and white versus the one I'm giving you now in color. And the one we have in color is our master plan. And one of the things that we tried to do in this, and I'm really want to talk about it, is get into a couple of product types. Once again, meeting the market where we are today. You know, we think there's some exciting things about the products we have, and I've given you another example on the very back of a color of a product, a color rendering of a product. We like master downs. We do have some that are master ups. We have multiple bedrooms. We want to do things that have some new and exciting elevations to them. We want to do some things that are good for your homeowners. We talked about briefly, even things that would even allow for electric car plug-ins in the garages, some things that are new and innovative and exciting that could be good for Woodfin and a good sales tool. Our price points on these products are going to be probably from the 320s to the upper 300s, and we see that potentially escalating as things go along. We did move. There was a pocket park at one time in the original plan. It kind of was set between some different houses. We have gone to the end. We got another little shot when we first bought this property. At the very end of the property, if you can look down here, you'll see what looks like a pond. That is actually had a high hazard dam on it. So our choices were to release the dam and create a nice downstream, nice stream downflow. And James, you correct me if I say anything wrong here, but and when we talked to the Corps of Engineers, they suggested that we do release the dam. So we pumped it down and we busted the dam and we let it go down so that way nobody downstream would ever get flooded. And in doing so, it allowed us to move where we could have a lot of green open space at the end of the neighborhood. A lot of times when you put pocket parks between people's living arrangements, it kind of becomes their domain. And other people are a little less eager to get in there. And also those folks, guess what? If we all lived on a pocket park, we want it to be really beautiful and spectacular. I didn't live on it. I don't want to pay those dues necessarily to make it beautiful and spectacular. So what we hope to create down the end of the road here, and I'm not so sure how this will happen, if we have an opportunity to enter in some sort of arrangement, then the folks who are the 19 homes could possibly use our green space. As of now, they're not part of our HOA, so they wouldn't be using it. But it's certainly something we could sit down and talk about, because once again, I think at the end of the day, having one neighborhood here is valuable to everybody. The only thing we've seen that could be a little bit different is they have a water line that runs into their 19 units. We are not going to tap onto it. We're bringing our own line in. So we will not be a part of that. That would be the only difference our HOAs may have is they may have a little sub-association, and I'm getting into some particulars here, but I want them to know that we're not out to try to hurt anybody. So we will not tap into that line, and they asked us not to, and so we have the right to, but we're not going to. We're going to bring our own line in. But if we could create a space at the end of the neighborhood where everybody could use it, as we start to see who fills our neighborhood, you know, if we put a swing set out there and we find out there's nobody with kids, we just wasted a lot of money. But we may find out that we want to just have open space. We may want to have some park benches. We may want a dog walk area. That becomes very valuable and big thing. So where you can throw a frisbee, where you can just get out and be a little bit in nature. So this space actually meets, if I'm not mistaken, James, 3 times the ordinance requirement for open space in our neighborhood. So we're sensitive to those things. We know what sells. We know why people come to Woodfin. If they want to live in New York City, they'd be there, right? They come here to be outside and have walkable sidewalks. So this master plan deviates only slightly.
Yeah, probably, you know. It's an inside joke with being sidewalks.
Okay. The only thing that the exterior of this plan was almost set before we ever came along because of the way the grades fall. So the exterior of housing here is the same practically as before. We just ended up and took this housing off the end of it. And we increased the interior units to be the units that we're building more in the Charlotte market and have a lot of success with. It has a garage to pull into, and then you walk into your house and there's no steps to get in the garage. So it's a flat living. It really is desirable for a lot of folks. So the tweaking of the master plan has been minimal. The unit count's not changed at all. It's the same dimensions. Like I said, we just changed where the green space is a little bit. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions and any technical questions. Once again, these guys are smarter than I am.
So the pond's not there anymore?
No, sir. We busted the dam out of it. It's just a stream now that kind of flows.
How do you see your park, your master plan, as part of your requirements?
Yeah, and that's what's at the very end down there. Once that stream, we have actually a set of full construction drawings that we've done, and that as that area is eliminated, it opens up that into green space. We're actually moving dirt in there to make that all space because that was a pond. So we're having to you want to go?
I think the ordinance says it has to comply with open space, and that is being set up as open space. And that leaves us some flexibility to do more than something to say right now.
It's nice little pretty master plan, has it called out.
Yeah,
Is it some trees?
Yeah, it actually needs to work hard.
yeah, and we can type that word there at the end, or put it in space.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine, I mean, I'm good people now, and I'll have to have some faith that you are gonna follow through with your word. Or
It's an ordinance, it's not our word, we have to, yeah.
But I can see it here, I can't see it necessarily out here.
But it complies because it's open space. Like all it's required by ordinance.
Right.
Usually have to talk to that public sports facilities, and that's what the left now is.
Yeah, that's what it, right, yeah. And once again, I think our intentions are, if you have 120 residents that want to do something there, the HOA is gonna support doing some stuff there, but, you know, we talked about a fire pit, for instance, well, do you make it wood? If you do, who's gonna go cut all the wood and get it lined up? You make it gas, who's gonna make sure it gets cut off and it's safe? So there's some things, once the HOA gets a little more involved, we can make some things happen. It'll be their nickels, so we don't wanna spend it for them either until they're ready.
Is there a way to put a second entrance in your plan?
Not in the piece of property that we bought, no, sir. There may be an opportunity for Stars and Stripes to own the
I
balance.
know when those guys came originally, that was one of the things we were asking them to do, was have another.
They have the ability for the second ingress and egress, and I don't know this for fact because I wasn't, the meetings were Zoom back then, so you kind of caught parts of different things. But I know there was conversation about hopefully having an opportunity to have another entrance up above the way.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, some of these folks is concerned with just the number of folks coming in and out of there between the hours of 8 and 10 or whatever.
Yeah, and once again, I think the demographic will be, we'll find out just how heavy they are, you know, who's gonna live there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, good point.
And then as the developer, is it your intention to sell them as single-family residences, or are you gonna hold on to any and use them as rentals?
We won't hold them any, no, sir. They'll be sold, yes.
Okay. And then I'm assuming you'll put together a covenants and restrictions package.
Oh, there's already recorded covenant. Absolutely, yep. We actually did that before we bought it, because Stars and Stripes is still the declarant.
Okay.
And they still own some property, so we had to have an agreement with them. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just always like to jump in here. Because the master plan anticipates that it is rezoned, I think your motion and recommendation would have to have a contingency statement that if the area is rezoned from R7 to Mountain Village, then we recommend approval of the master plan, recommend disapproval, whatever, I don't care. So just put that little phrase on the front end.
Okay, so are we going to make, someone want to make a motion? This vote to discuss? I'm so tired, I can't keep my eyes. I'm sorry. What? Somebody down there want to make a motion?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I don't have the paper to read it off of, but, yeah, for sure. I would like to make the motion, that we present to the Board of Commissioners, the master plan as presented today, here, with the condition that obviously it does get passed by the town commissioners and the Board of Commissioners, on their next meeting. The rezoning, yeah.
Rezone from,
It has to be conditioned on the rezoning from 7 to Mountain Village.
May I?
Sure, why not, Tim?
So what I hear you saying is that you make a motion to recommend that the master plan as presented be approved by the commissioners contingent upon the rezoned area, the area being rezoned from R7 to Mountain View.
Correct.
Did I?
In lawyer talk, you got it.
Just one.
But yeah, that's what I am doing, Sam, I am making that motion.
Okay, so is there a second? Okay, in a second, so we'll vote. Everyone in favor of the motion? Okay. Not opposed. So, you together? Okay. Oh, what? Oh, okay. So, our December meeting,
It's December 13th.
December 13th, okay? December 13th meeting, we want to start at, well, we want a special meeting that starts at 6:30, not 7:30. Okay. And now we're gonna adjourn. Okay.
Need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. We're on there.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, yeah.